to order at 1:04. This is a reorganized Ag Advisory Board, and for those of you who have never been at the Ag Advisory Board, we passed a resolution last year to form, it was introduced by the Sustainability Policy Committee to create an Ag Advisory Board. And what the resolution says is, it has been determined that there is a need for improved communication between the farming community and the Sullivan County Legislature in order to provide more effective assistance to farmers. The Sullivan County Legislature would like to create an Ag Advisory Board to foster the sharing of information between farmers and policymakers. Such an advisory board should include 11 to 13 community members that possess an awareness of agriculture as well as the needs and strengths of the farming community. Whereas members shall be appointed by the chair, and we had been meeting on a monthly basis to review ag activities and develop recommendations with regard to the best use of resources to foster the development of agriculture. So the Ag Advisory Board was born, and what we did was we pulled together people that were already working on ag initiatives in some form or another. And so I think what I'm going to do, thank you all for coming. I'm just going to go around, and for those of you that don't know each other, just introduce yourselves. I'm Cindy Geiger, County Legislator. I also chair the Ag and Sustainability Committee and the Ag Advisory Board. Dick?
I'm Dick Riesling from Apple Pond Farm and Renewable Energy Education Center.
I'm Nan Stolzenberg from Community Planning and Environmental Associates. I'm one of the consultants hired by the county to help update their Ag and Farmland Protection Plan.
Don Meltz, I work with Nan on and also working on the Ag and Farmland Protection Plan.
Mary Tonjes Farm Dairy, Calhoun.
Erin Birch, Program and Agricultural Coordinator at Catston Mountain Keeper.
Steve Mitchell, SUNY Sullivan.
Linda Meadow, Cornell Cooperative Extension and County Planning.
Amy Earlwine, Sullivan County Farm Network, Agritourism.
Sonia Hedlund, Sullivan County Farm Network.
Okay, I did get a correspondence from Denise Frangipani from Sullivan Renaissance, and I will discuss her input. She's an excellent member, and she always has some recommendations, which I will discuss later when we move forward. Okay. So to reinstate, the goal of the Ag Advisory Board is to foster the sharing of information of the ag community and prioritize efforts to move forward. What we hope to do is, through Nan's work, I want to thank Nan and Dan for coming and working on the Farmland Protection Plan. They've been working with the Ag Advisory Board and Cornell Cooperative Extension. As some of you are probably aware, there's been surveys that went out to the public for their input on, their recommendations to move agriculture forward, and also a survey that went out to the farming community, and Nan will speak to that in just a moment. Okay, so we're hoping through the plan and cooperation with Cornell and, the Ag Advisory Board members to prioritize an ag initiative to move forward, give it a time frame, pull in the resources, and accomplish the goals, okay? So are there any questions from anybody so far? Okay, so we're gonna move to number 3. Melinda is our shared ag planner. We're really thrilled to have her on board. She's got the challenge of working in 2 different places, in Cornell and with the county, but we appreciate all the work that she's done so far. So, Melinda, can you give us an update?
Sure. I'm working a lot with the County Farmland Protection Plan, which we'll talk about, so I won't get too much detail with that, but just the time frame that we're looking at. We're going to work over the summer on getting the goals and strategies together and have a goal towards the end of the year, beginning of next year, to have the plan complete and ready to go. There's also the Ag 30-day district review is happening right now. We have until the end of the month, and I'm working with the Farmland Protection Board on that, and we're going to meet soon and put together recommendations for the county legislature. And then also at Cornell, we've been working on the Greenhouse High Tunnel project, and the greenhouse has gone up, and we've been working with Sullivan Renaissance and BOCES, and we just had the high tunnel delivered, so that will go up soon, and we're working on programming right now to offer educational classes on year-round production for farmers. And then just also a note too, there's a dairy processing equipment RFP that was due last Friday, but we're extending the deadline for that. I don't have that offhand, but it's gonna be extended to allow for more applications.
What is it extended to?
I have the date offhand.
Okay,
Could I ask, how many applicants do we have for the airbag?
We didn't have any, so
No.
we're extending.
Does that mean there's a possibility possibly breaking that larger sum into 2 or 3 possible?
It was always a
grantees?
possibility. You don't have to apply for the whole thing. It could be more than one applicant for the money.
But they had hoped for at least 60,000. Wasn't that the initial? Do they wanna stick to that, at least 60?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, so it'd have to be the whole 186,000.
okay, so, Melinda's referencing the request for proposal for the dairy processing facility, and for those of you that aren't aware, there is, grant funding available for, some kind of effort in dairy value added. And currently, right now, we had someone that was interested that, the proposal didn't work out, so the grant is still there. Like Melinda says, the deadline is in the fall. Right.
For our end to close it out, but to get their request for extension.
Right, and somebody had asked me a question if it would, include like dairy, goat processing, like if somebody had a goat dairy.
Mhm. I think the intent, I don't think that was the original intent, and we haven't had any requests, from people.
Okay, so I'm just gonna pass this around if anybody wants to kind of look through that, and kind of get an idea. So there is grant funding for a dairy initiative, and I know that Cornell has done, it's a grant.
Well, it's a grant on our end, but then the county would still own the equipment and lease
Lease
it
it back.
with the option to buy it out at the end for a low
Yeah.
rate.
Let's make sure that gets to the people on the outside here too. Okay.
With my scratch notes on it.
Uh-oh.
Beth and Nancy are here, they're on the board also.
And I know that there was a really good effort to get that out to the farmers, because we have a dairy farm ourselves, and my husband received that as well. So, Melinda, and I just had a question about the high tunnel. I don't know how many of you have driven by Cornell and saw the work that's being done on site there. So the high tunnel itself, because you had said, for year-round, classes, the high tunnel, what that does, is extend the growing season. So, like they could grow into the winter months.
Yep, and their first class will be about how you can do it and how much it costs and the logistics of actually getting it going yourself. So the first year will be more about that and business planning and marketing, and then next year we're really gonna get to classes on production and what can be grown in the high tunnel.
So this is more as like an adult ed, like that sort of
Educational training,
like
yeah.
just a program,
Yeah,
like a traditional program.
yeah, educational program, yeah.
But targeted more for adults or
For
business
farm-
people, not so
Yeah,
much
for
kids.
farmer, but the greenhouse part, we are working on things with our Master Gardener program. We're starting a junior Master Gardener program, so there'll be ways to incorporate that, but we're still figuring it out.
So I think it's really, really exciting.
It is.
Because,
It really is.
we had, when the Farm Network had the rural, forum at the Jeff Fire Hall, we had a gentleman from, I think it was from Pennsylvania, that was operating high tunnels and producing throughout the winter months. And so it's really a good option for somebody that wants to enter agriculture with the training now and the site, the actual physical high tunnel there for people to see. It's an opportunity for people to enter agriculture, so it's,
Yeah,
If
exciting.
I may add, the Farm to Market Conference, which was a couple of weeks ago, also had a very good program from a farmer that uses high tunnels, and it was very informative.
where was
So,
that?
There was the
conference?
Farm to Market Conference that Pure Cascades
Oh,
puts on.
CBI.
It was at, yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't-
it was at Center for Discovery at the Ritchie Barn this year.
yep.
It was a very good conference.
Could those materials be shared with Extension or sent out to people?
Are you talking about Paul and Sandy Arnold's materials?
People from the
Yeah.
North Country?
I could ask them
Yeah, those
if they're willing to share them.
Yes.
I know that they are. I was at the workshop and talked to them afterwards, and they're also willing to come down here. And we also have Connor Crickmore, who is growing vegetables 12 months a year, and very, very successfully.
Neversink Farm.
Never seen from.
Did you guys have the sign-in sheet going around there?
Would anybody next?
Down here.
Okay, I see Nancy came in. Hi, Nancy.
Hi,
You wanna introduce yourself too?
I'm Nancy McGraw, I'm the Public Health Director.
Working with Farm to Table, which is a, Farm to School program. Okay, number 4, update farmland protection plan and priorities, Nan and Dan. Don.
Okay, we have, more than just an update. It's really, an exercise to help the committee work through and identify some priority projects that you want to move on and help you focus in on the steps that we need to take to get them moving. I can give you a little bit just to update everybody on where the plan is at. We have, pretty much collected our data, and assessed current conditions of agriculture in the county. We're compiling that information. We have held, a farmers meeting, a month ago, I guess it was, that was well attended, and, I have some, results for you from that. We have done a survey of municipalities, a survey open to the public, and a survey of farmers to get input to find out what's on people's minds and what ideas they have on how we can move agriculture forward. Our other partners have held a focus group on tourism and agritourism, and another one on economic development. And we're meeting next week with the Ag and Farmland Protection Board to work on some, farmland or critical farmland identification. So we have kind of multiple things going on at the same time. What we wanted to accomplish today was to get some feedback from the Ag Advisory Board on what your priorities are, and then to focus in on helping you understand or identify the steps that are needed to get some of them moving. So this is what we're going to accomplish. I'm just gonna send this around. This is the agenda for like the next hour. And this little sheet coming around is really what, we think that in order to implement any kind of project, these are the steps that we have to identify. These are the things that the full Ag and Farmland Protection Plan will address for the broader set of projects and programs that will be in the full plan. But I think for your purposes, for your Ag Advisory Committee, that this is really the outline of what we hope to accomplish, to get it moving from just an idea on a piece of paper to something real. And that's what we're gonna try and do, some of these today in a focus group kind of format, kind of a rapid fire, not a lot of detailed discussion, but getting a lot of things on the paper and a lot of brainstorming. So we're gonna hopefully identify the project, identify partners that can help, create a task list, at least an initial list of tasks that need to be done to move it off the paper and into something that's real. See if we can make some assignments, or at least for you guys to identify some of the tasks, or maybe a subcommittee that could tackle some of those tasks and identify the next steps to move these along. So that, this little sheet here is kind of our guideline for today. What is coming around next is, whoops, that was, yeah, I don't know, that's it. What's coming around next is what we're gonna be going through.
Some seats here, Mike.
This one is, we have been collecting a lot of information from a lot of different sources about agriculture in the county. And the plan ultimately will have 3 parts. identify what you hope agriculture will be in the future. It will identify a set of goals and priority projects that the county should be working on. And then the more important part is we'll identify the action steps and the project partners and cost estimates of how to get those going. So the first sheet that I just sent around is really for your information to read. These are the sheet that says vision goals from Farmers Focus Group meeting. We had I thought a great session, 2 hours of input from the farming community, and they identified that first list of bulleted points about what they hope farming and agriculture will be in the county. Through our economic development focus group, one of the first questions of that committee, of that group, was to kind of describe county agriculture from their perspective, and this was people who were involved in agriculture to economic development. And you can see that it's kind of a mix of positive oriented statements with not so positive oriented statements. So what we're trying to do in the plan is identify the issues and the needs and come up with projects that counteract the negatives and build on the positives. The second sheet of that first page lists in kind of a nutshell all of the issues that we have identified so far. And keep in mind that this is preliminary because we haven't compiled all the results from the surveys yet. So there may be other things to add to both of these lists. But the numbers that are attached on the under where it says issues identified from Farmers Focus Group meeting, the numbers we asked the participants to use a little sticker to vote and identify what are their priority issues. So those numbers are organized in priority issue from the participants at the farm meeting. So it gives you an idea of where their thinking was at. So that you kind of gives context to the next sheet, which starts off with strategies.
Yeah, thanks.
And this is what we really want to concentrate on today. There's been a lot of talk in this committee and with the Ag and Farmland Protection Board about what can be done. And I think that, you know, we heard, Don and I and the other team members heard a lot about we could do this, we could do that, but through the planning process, I think this is, from my perspective, the first time I've seen a comprehensive list of all of these broad ideas in one place. Same as before, the little boxes, or the numbers before the first set are the priority order of the farmers who were present at the Farmers Focus Group meeting. So you can see that, so for instance, 22 people voted that marketing and advice on marketing and helping identify niche markets and branding and those types of things were what got the highest number of quote votes from the farming community. The other half of the page going on to the back side are other ideas that did not really get mentioned at the farm meeting, but have been mentioned by our other efforts through, we've done a series of interviews. Like I mentioned, we had a couple other focus groups. We've had a lot of discussion in the committee. So this is, again, preliminary, subject to more ideas being added. But this is a list, and I didn't actually count them all up, but this is a list of the ideas that have been generated through our planning process so far of the projects that people feel are needed to take place in order to move agriculture forward. What I would like us to do today is to take a couple minutes, just let you look through these strategies, and I would like you to use your gut reaction. The little check marks are really for you. If you could just mark down, check off 3 or 4 or 5 at the most of these strategies that just by looking through them strike you as what you feel is the most critical need as a project to move forward on. And then we're going to see if there's some consensus on what those are, and then try and come up with some implementation steps so that the Ag Advisory Committee has some direction and some, I don't want to say commitment, but some, I'll say commitment.
A step forward.
A step forward, some way of moving that forward. So the plan that we're working on is gonna identify all of the relevant projects, but this committee can start and jump in on some of the, at least one of the top priorities. So if you could just take a couple minutes and mark down what you think are really important strategies.
Before we dive in, just for people who don't know me, I'm Beth McKellips. I'm the Farm to Market Manager with the Watershed Ag Council. I don't know everyone at the table, so. Also, do we have any joint members or any interface with the Regional Economic Development Council that works in this area? Because it seems like whatever we do here should be in line with that.
Right.
Because
And that's part of the broader plan. I mean, in the Ag and Farmland Protection Plan, the object is to have projects that can be implemented with the information needed for CFA applications that will be coordinated with the Regional Economic Development Council, because that's the only way they'll be funded. Is that there, so some of these.
we'll be communicating.
Yes,
with
that's
each other.
right.
Okay.
First, we have to identify what are your priorities and what are the things that you feel are needed. And then we'll work on doing that coordination. So that will come a little later.
Great.
And then our economic development team, that's why we have an economic development specialist on our team. She's not here today, but she will be coordinating all of that.
Great.
So you want us to focus on the strategy end of it?
Yeah, I want you, right now, I want you to,
Okay.
right, because we want to be action oriented. I think that you can read the issues in the vision and we can comment on that. We're working on that with the Ag and Farmland Protection Board as well.
Okay.
I'd like you to really focus on what are the most important things you feel need to get done in Sullivan County. Because that was what the Ag Advisories Committee charges, is to help implement some of these projects. So I'm trying in this hour or so is to get you to focus on how we do that. So we'll take just another couple minutes, and then what I'd like to do is go around the room and ask you to just identify which ones you feel are most important, and we'll go from there. I know it's a lot to digest in a short amount of time. And this is not the only time you'll see these. I mean, this is really just, consider this an initial start of the discussion. So maybe, we'll just give it a go and start. You wanna, start over here and kinda just outline what you think are important?
And you want me to stick to this or the whole?
The whole, any of those things on the whole thing, just, yeah.
The red meat facility, because I see that as the quickest way for people to get involved. Identify some niche markets. The entrepreneurial scale in Sullivan County, the community kitchen, the small things where people can realize that they can make a little headway, and then hopefully once their feet are wet can then expand on what they're doing, or it'll create a focus for people.
Okay.
Things like the farm to table co-packers, you know, where people can, if they're really not of the mind to sell direct, they can sell off to someone who can then use their products. Those seems like good ways for people to start to get involved. I do like the idea of the lodging and agritourism because I think it's untapped and it's a beautiful county. Promoting renewable energy, the Solarized Sullivan, smart just because energy costs are only gonna increase and that's gonna be important. And the SUNY Sullivan, opportunities for food processing. I think again, that's, if people can see the raw products turn to value added, and it may open up more opportunities.
Okay. What are some of yours?
All right, I checked a lot. I'm gonna try to compartmentalize them a little bit. So I definitely think technical assistance, especially around value-added processing, either on the commercial scale or on the farm scale. I think that's a huge need. The access to land topics, I checked the financial and business planning, but not the marketing for farmers. I think that there are marketing services for farmers, but I think helping some farmers understand their profitability and keeping records and all that stuff is a huge need. I definitely think some kind of central organization or some even, you know, informal way that all the groups that are doing work around agriculture and economic development can communicate, work together, and so we're not overlapping or duplicating efforts, would be great. I echo the need for a red meat facility, but I really would qualify that in saying this, there's a gap between what consumers want and what our processing facilities are providing. So getting a lot more charcuterie, aging, facilities in, so not just the cut and package or kill, cut, pack, whatever. I shouldn't say that. But you know, so just some more sophisticated charcuterie services would be great, or businesses. And I definitely think the tourism should be played up, and I thought the loan fund program for a more of a farmer-friendly loan program would be great. So I guess I would just lump all of that into access to capital.
Okay.
Where to start?
Darryl, yes.
That's the biggest challenge. From a health perspective, agriculture development is critical, I believe, to improving health for many segments of our population. The focus that I've been working on with various groups over the years has been focused on our youth and farm to school initiative that we've been trying to get off the ground for a number of years. Lack of resources is really the critical issue there in terms of a centralized organization to take a leadership role that all organizations working together are limited in terms of their staffing, their awareness, their expertise in this area, but there is a desire to do this. And in order for that to happen, local farming needs to be supported, year-round farming. I saw something about promoting hoop houses for year-round vegetable farming. That could be pivotal in terms of seeing a successful farm-to-school program being implemented countywide. I think also there's some potential with the food hub to connect with that project, to reach out and see how we can connect the dots between these initiatives. Schools are limited in their funding in terms of the additional money that they have to purchase locally grown food, which can be a little bit more expensive. So resources are needed in terms of grants. Farm to school grants have been applied for. We've been supported by the local leadership on doing that. Hasn't happened yet, but I do see a very strong possibility of that moving forward. But we need the infrastructure in place in this county in order to really, truly make that happen. Otherwise, local purchasing becomes more regional instead of Sullivan County. In addition to that, there's many farm-to-school garden projects that are happening. That's been increasing over the years. There's some more community garden projects happening, I see. That's something that's sustainable. That needs to be sustainable in order for that to move forward. And I guess I would just finally connect that with some education and training opportunities through SUNY Sullivan. Opportunities for kids to get more involved in agriculture and interested in learning more about it and potentially becoming part of the labor force.
Okay.
What are some of your ideas? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
From a advocacy and educational perspective, first and foremost, it's startup money for young farmers. Farmers are aging out, and it's no longer necessarily a family generational business as we'd like to see. So I see that as one of the biggest barriers for young farmers. And kind of connected to that is linking farmers to unused land. We have a lot of historical ag land. It can also help decrease our development, or unwanted development. Additionally, form a communications channel with the local college. This is just from a personal perspective. I've lived in a community where the local college was very involved with local agriculture, and it thrived, and I just see it as a great link. Also, entrepreneurial scale in Sullivan County, the community kitchen, small caterers. I see this as an up-and-coming market, and it's doing well, but could be better. And also new farmer recruitment and training, just another barrier for young farmers, and more access to that. Be helpful.
I look at the whole list and try to categorize it. I think there are issues on the supply side in terms of what farmers are after, and some of it's from the college perspective, knowledge, skill, and abilities. What do they need to know or to be more effective in their businesses? There's all the resources side, whether it's finance or land or others, and then the workforce had the pipeline of people, what's the succession, the new farmers piece, and what's the need around there. You talked about the red meat facility and the need for more niche markets. What is the exact demand that we're gonna meet with whatever products we're producing? So what are the profitable markets that are out there? I haven't seen a lot around that. And then between that supply and demand, I think there's a lot to do around linking them together, whether it's a food hub or the culinary kitchens, or, there's a thing in Europe, at a social innovation awards, and one of the 10 finalists is a website that links local farmers to markets. So that may, whether that goes through the counties or others. So what are the linking mechanisms between those? And so I went through and tried to categorize them, and I don't know enough about farms in particular to know which one should be a priority.
Okay.
I think one big priority, it's kind of ties into a lot of what's on here, is new farmer recruitment and training, and also just even educational training for existing farmers. And I kind of see that ties in also with business planning for farmers and the lack of affordable land and linking unused land for new farmers. I think that's a big part of it. And then also having this one place which I know Cornell does a lot with, but a county agricultural website that really has a lot of information that people need, instead of having to search through different places for it. I think those are big things. And then I also have two, I think is really important, the small dairy processing facility in connection with different value-added products, such as yogurt or kosher milk and things like that. And then also, promotion of an advocate for the high tunnels and the year-round growing and extending that season and getting more product out and having that, again, those tools. And I know I have to limit it, so I'll just say two other ones quick. Promoting lodging and agritourism, I think is really important too. And then also just marketing in general, I think connecting with a lot of these other things, even with the dairy processing, and agritourism and that identity and branding.
I'm not gonna say too much, getting over a cold.
Okay.
But I was at the farmer focus meeting, there, and, a couple of things that, I believe in strongly was the ability to attract young farmers. I know that's been mentioned before, but, I am part of that aging farm community, and a lot of the farms don't have a next step. So I think linking up, young farmers with available property in Sullivan County is a huge deal in order to keep agricultural going, because otherwise this is almost the last generation that's gonna be in agriculture here. So that is extremely important, and making it affordable for them is extremely important, because a young farmer is not going to see a tremendous amount of income unless it's absolutely supported by business plans and marketing and everything else. If they don't have that in place for them, they're not gonna be successful here. It's just not gonna happen. So that to me would be one of the most important, and I think that the community college really needs to step up and help, young farmers with that. Also in connection with that, attracting food entrepreneurs to connect with the farmers here, because a lot of farmers do what they do, but they can't do the value added as well. So you need a food entrepreneur to step in, take their products, and make it shelf-stable products that can be shipped in this food hub that we wanna put in. You know, a lot of products are not shelf-stable, they're very, limited in how long they can be in what place. But if we, make more shelf-stable items and things that can be held and then shipped, and that could be a better way to keep the farmers doing what they do,
Okay.
create that link. That's my.
I would do the red meat plant this year. I would produce it, and I would only do charcuterie prior, because that's the demand, and we don't have the quality beef that will get enough money for it. On new farmers, without a doubt, I think the county should let land that's unused, that's going for auction now with the yellow signs everywhere. If you've graduated from the farmer training, you are put into a lottery, and you could have that land leased for a small amount of money for 5 years to farm on. I would definitely increase agro-tourism, bed and breakfast, Airbnbs, farm stays of any kind, even looking back to our history with bungalows, and people come here, they want to visit farms. I would do a bigger farm-to-school effort now, and I would do it on meat. And I would raise money from Kiwanis, churches, philanthropists, to pay 3 farmers to send 3 cull cows to be made totally into hamburgers, and to give it to schools now and do it. So we could actually say we have done a project. And meat is easy, hamburgers you eat all the time. It doesn't depend on the weather. High tunnels is the way to go. I would try to encourage farmers to have apprentices, to think of themselves as mentors for the next generation. They have such knowledge, and it's not really being passed on. And finally, somehow in this plan, you have to mention broadband as essential to the expansion of business in Sullivan County.
Okay, looking at the list, there's a lot of things that we could make priorities. I just wanted to kind of go down and kind of address some of the things that are on the list. The county ag website, I'll just pass this around. with Melinda and Jill before her, and this current legislature, we have, moved ag forward. We have the Ag Advisory Board now. Sustainability Committee became an ag component to it. What I'm trying to do as a legislator is to assist Melinda in planning with a small business division. Currently, right now, we have economic development entities, the IDA and the partnership, which they focus on larger businesses. And I see there is one on here somewhere about focusing on the small business instead of the mega businesses, the big job creators. So I'm working with the chair of planning to move that forward. We have a new director in planning that we recently hired, and I've been in conversation with her to make that happen. My feeling is with a small business division within planning to take the lead on what Sullivan County is, because I'm kind of a broken record. If you look at if you look at the state comptroller's report, the impacts of small business in New York State, it's almost 90% of all business is small business. Under 20 employees, it's like 85%. The smaller job creators are there paying taxes. We're really, we're challenged in a lot of areas. So as far as here in Sullivan County, I would love to see small business division with planning taking the lead for economic development. With that said, SUNY Sullivan has been on board with us. I know there's several things in here to bring in SUNY Sullivan. Dr. Hilgerson, Steve Mitchell, they've offered value-added classes. They've worked with Public Health and Nancy McGraw, so they're right there, and they're on board. As far as what I would prioritize, it's the marketing and branding along with funding for farm initiatives. To pull in, the grant money and the red meat facility. It says on here to include the need for butchering, marketing, packing. I understand with the red meat processing, you would need value added, sausage and smoked meats and things. So to put those pieces together with the red meat facility, because in my way of thinking, and we do have a dairy farm, and I'm in communication with a lot of the farmers, and there are, like Amy says, retiring farmers that want to utilize their open land and raise beef cows. But a farmer's not going to go to the red meat plant and process their meat, take it home in the back of their truck and try to sell it to their family. So where is that piece? We have 2 proposals for food hubs in Sullivan County, one through the IDA and one through Solutions Project. I had asked Andrea to come here today and speak a little bit on that. And the reason why food hubs are so important is because the connection, for example, when you process your red meat at the red meat facility, if there's a truck going to the metropolitan area and can take your meat that's already wrapped and already ready for market to the metropolitan area, we have a steady stream for open space to fill the open space in the farmland with beef producers and market. A big piece of it also is that I saw on here advertising more for agriculture as a whole, and to try and beef up that piece. Oh, sorry, Sonia. You all right there?
Yes, I'm all right.
I went to a workshop at SUNY New Paltz last year, which was phenomenal. And what they had said to us, as representing Sullivan County, was we can market through the brand of the Hudson Valley that outreaches, so we should be tapping into that branding piece. So for me, it's marketing and branding. It's startup money for young farmers and innovative funding mechanisms. It's taking the lead, and I would like to see the county take the lead on economic development and to bring in IDA and partnership as big job creators. I understand that role, but where is the small the small business driving? Also, capitalizing on the New York City market. It's right there, like Steve Mitchell said. Make the link between farmers' products and the niche markets. We can identify niche markets. It might be a specialized cheese, or it might be a special vegetable, maybe an heirloom vegetable or something, to try to tap into that. And link farmers to unused land. We have been in conversation, the auction properties coming. and having Cornell doing a program where the most promising farmer would, now put that property back on the tax rolls and start farming again. There is a checkbox on here for property tax relief. Okay, I'm there. I know what the challenges are. We're looking at a new jail, 7% tax increase for a $60 million jail. I mean, it's up to the legislature to get that in order. In order to build a jail at that price, you either have to reduce services or you have to earmark some kind of revenue. So, that's really on the elected officials, and I feel very strongly that unless we get that in check, all these other initiatives, if people can't afford to pay the taxes here, are really going to be, moot efforts. So, I really think that the marketing and branding with the red meat facility and getting a handle on food hubs. I know some of you are here today because you have questions about the food hub. A regional food hub, like Nancy McGraw, I heard her say, is it going to address Sullivan County products? How is that going to work? We all have questions about that. It's on the agenda. Toward the end of the meeting, I'll open it up. We do have Andrea here. The IDA, unfortunately, could not be here at the table to discuss the food hub in Glenwild, but we will provide what information we have, because I think it's a really important piece to get the questions answered and to move forward by identifying our farmers here in Sullivan. I mean, that's our priority, and making sure that those concerns are addressed. Okay, so I'm done now with my soapbox. Dick?
I'm just going to give 4 broad categories, and many of the individual strategies here would be conflated or integrated into them. The first one is, and I think it's the most important one of all, we simply have to increase food production, especially in the area of vegetables and fruits. The meat thing is coming along, and I think it will come along better, and many of our dairy farms and other farms can be retrofitted rather easily for that. And it has its challenges, like everything in agriculture does, but it has fewer challenges in terms of the learning curve and the length of time and the degree of difficulty to master the trade. So I really think the first emphasis should be, and it's relatively much higher priority than the other ones are, simply because it has such a great value, and we simply don't know how to do it, so we should make it. Always try with something that's really, really hard. Always try with something really hard. Because that's the one. It's hard because it's very, very important. But that's why nobody does it. So that's what we should do. And the way to do that is to, of course, have more farmers, have more people growing food, and that's the hoop house idea. That's the value-added idea. So to get more farmers, we have to invent some language, because I don't read any really good language on how do you actually recruit more farmers. And I think that's, we write letters, we write advertising. Sullivan County is open. Sullivan County is excited about becoming a farming center, and we will have all kinds of opportunities. Give us a call. We should have this on the website. We should have this all over crazy. We are advertising for young people who want to become farmers. I think that's a very, very important thing that Sullivan County Business Association, everybody else ought to really be tuned in. Our radio stations, there should be a massive campaign about that. Marketing the county as farmer-friendly, food producer-friendly. That's the message. That's the brand. Brand Sullivan County as a food-producing area. We love farmers. We love the ones that are here, although we don't show it. But maybe we'll show you more love if you come. That's number one. Number two is, I like the idea of the value added. And to get value added, it's really hard. We need to have a very significant budget line item commitment, so we declare our value in terms of dollars and cents relative to other dollar and cents declarations. We must have experts that come in here on a sustained basis and tell us about value added in dairy or other existing farms, the nurseries and other kinds of things. We have a lot of things in dairy. We have trees, we have the Sylvian industry, the forestry industry. There's a lot of different products here, an enormous number of products here that we're not talking about. We could displace all that commercial fertilizer. Get rid of all that stuff. Get rid of all that commercial mulch. We can produce all of it right here through our agricultural waste and clean up the environment at the same time, because methane, is coming off that kind of stuff. So I'll try to go more quickly. That's the second one. really get, and Harry Edwards would be an interesting guy on high tunnels. He used to be with Hargrove. Hargrove is out of business. But Harry Edwards is in Pennsylvania. He grows 1.5 acres of vegetables under tunnels right now himself. Plus, he knows everything about high tunnels himself, but he's a producer. Really quite a guy. You try him, among others, and there's lots of other people involved. The third one is agritourism and lodging. The dollars and cents here are extraordinary, and the rate of a profit is very, very high. Little expenditure of labor, little expenditure of time, almost no, well, maybe a little retrofit for some of the farms that I visit, including ours, but we know from our own experience that agritourism is very, very profitable. Okay, very profitable. And it's not, and that's not just the lodging part, but also having people come. Okay, so it is very profitable, I'll tell you that. The fourth one is energy efficiency and renewable energy. You know, we can do this, we prove we can do it. We have lots of people here who can do this. You don't have to ask anybody's permission. You're gonna get lots of grants. They're easy to get because they're non-competitive, they're not capped, they're subsidized. Let's get the costs down. We were all told as children, that's how we were supposed to behave. We haven't behaved that since we were children. Let's get back to it a little bit. You know, and it's smart. It will attract people. It certainly, you put up a wind turbine, don't do that. Don't do that. Put up solar electric, and then put up a sign up that you have one, so they know that you have one. But anyhow, we need to do energy efficiency things very, very much. And the key thing is build capacity in farming. It's not very expensive to get into the kind of farming we're talking about at all. There's plenty of land that is available and relatively easy to access through 6 different types of lease agreements and identification programs and that kind of thing. There's a lot here that could be done. The main thing is be very, very credible, which means you have to be there all the time with representation about the fact that I want you. I'm not drafting you for Vietnam. I'm drafting you to go to the farm to school program, and if you're going to grow food, then you grow food for the farm school. Let's take up our own kids first, not because we're chauvinistic, but because that's where we'll get our feedback, that's where we'll get the next generation of farmers, that's where we'll get the mentors, and at the college and other things, and the schools will do it, but let's get an education program going with our farmers so they get more comfortable with having apprentices on their farm. It works out to everybody's benefit. It's very, very quick. It's real knowledge. It's useful knowledge. It's the shortest, quickest way to become a super excellent farmer.
Let's hold those thoughts on how we get there, because we're gonna come back to that. So if I could just kind of summarize, we went through a long list of ideas, many of which were related to each other and components of each other. And just as you've been going around, I just kept a little tally of the types of things that were mentioned over and over again, just to recap. Some of the things that were at the kind of were mentioned the most were lodging and agritourism activities, financial and business planning, promoting year-round farming, and the various things related to attracting young farmers, new funding for new farmers, recruitment of young farmers came up. Linking farmers to land resources came up a lot, and marketing came up a lot. Those were some common threads that a lot of you brought up. And the red meat facility with the kind of beyond just the facility, but making that more more valuable by the things that happen after the facility itself is built. So we need to, and all of that is really great input for the plan in particular, but what we were tasked with today was to try and move forward in implementing what you need to get implemented. So I guess I would, at some point, we have to have a project or have a priority that is manageable, is doable, and that we can identify the steps that need to go into it to make it possible. So what is your feeling based on the kind of narrowed down list that we heard? you know, what are the things that, are tangible that we could come up with steps and sink our teeth into working on. You know, like I said, the marketing, the recruiting and the startup funds for young farmers, linking farmers and land, those types of things came up. So I guess I'd ask you, can we take another pass and figure out what are kind of the top projects?
Well, my way of thinking is this: if you're identifying something that's moving now, and that would be the red meat facility, where's the marketing gonna be? Are we gonna produce beef? How is it getting to the market? So for me, it's an effort for marketing and branding, and that's kind of, there's prongs to that, because that would involve bringing in, advertising for that. And then the piece that's really big in my mind is a lead on agriculture. You know, if it's gonna be from the county planning and a small business development to include agriculture, I think that's really important for me as a legislator. So I would identify,
Cindy, can I ask a
those.
question about that, just in mostly a historical question? Have local farmers discussed together sharing one brand, like, you know, Catskills, whatever, just one brand, so that then everything,
well, I think maybe,
I mean, are
Yeah.
people willing to give up identities?
yeah,
I think?
yeah, she
I
could
think
probably
especially
talk to
if
that.
you were marketing it, because
Right.
farmer's
So-
not gonna bring this to the plant and get the frozen meat to take to the barn and
Okay.
sell.
Right.
Okay,
But people
can
are
we
okay
focus on the red
saying-
meat and talk about that one first and nail that down?
Can
We
I
have
say
to
one
build
thing?
the
Wait,
plan.
wait, one conversation.
One thing at a
I just wanna say
time.
one thing about the marketing, I absolutely don't wanna take away from the need to brand Sullivan County as a farmer-friendly production and agriculture-rich region. However, if this committee was wanting to maybe be economical with our efforts, there is the Pure Catskills regional brand, that I oversee, as of, within a few months ago. Sullivan County is definitely in part of that. Our membership has risen by 20% in this last year. So we also are opening up the Pure Catskills Marketplace online store. So there is a lot of momentum behind Pure Catskills. Some of the producers in this room who are part of Pure Catskills could maybe speak better if that satisfies the need for marketing. But I also think what you're talking about, and when you talk about this, it's not just marketing, but it's really distribution.
Yeah.
And it's really getting the logistics. It's really, in my mind, it's sales and distribution. The marketing piece, it's it's an easier problem to solve, or it's maybe less critical than the actual getting the food down there and figuring out who's gonna sell it and how it's gonna get from meat.
And so just
plant.
explain that piece, like how
Sure.
that what would be next steps for that?
Well, my recommendation would be to tap into the existing services that are already taking food down in the city. There is regional access, which has trucks going to the city every day, and it's a very farmer-friendly distribution service. There's Riviera Produce that's working in this area that has been farmer-friendly. There's the Lucky Dog Food Hub, which is expanding their distribution. They're in Delaware County, but they obviously go through here, so on the way to city. So there's, so I think it's more of I'm not recommending buying a truck by any means, but it's more like doing the groundwork, communicating with the farmers, letting them know that there are some marketing opportunities in, to downstate or maybe the Capital District, other markets, and basically tapping into those existing systems. And it also really takes a salesperson on the ground to go into and get the accounts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so if we're talking about the red meat plant and meat for a minute, so somebody would have to take the lead, right? Because there'll be meat processed through there. So a conversation would have to take place with the operator of the red meat plant. Right, 'cause
you're right that you need a brand. I don't think that's the hardest thing to conquer though, because you could, that could come together very quickly. You need a salesperson who's going out and getting accounts. You need to decide if you're gonna tap into one of the existing systems like Farmers Web or Good Eggs, or, there's several different private private market solutions, to sell local food, do, Fresh Direct, that's another really good
So
one.
if today we identified that piece that we're talking about, distribution, branding, marketing, Nan, would it make sense to form like a subcommittee with, you know, some of the people that have the knowledge of that, and then maybe at the next committee meeting, they can do a little legwork and bring it back and tell
Yeah.
us what we have to do?
I think you
Yeah.
Kind
probably need a coordinator more than anything else. I don't think you need to start a new business, buy a truck, you know, but you really need a coordinator.
Right.
So where's the
Right.
coordinator? Where's that person typically?
It's a pretty new industry, so they come from a lot of different, you know, I know some consultants that do this work. We could put together a committee, we could, you know.
So who takes the lead on it
Pure
typically?
Catskill takes the lead. You are the experienced one, you have done this for for years, you have the contacts with Lucky Dog, and it's working now.
So how do we make it work here?
We ask you to take some leadership on that, and we tell the Visitors Association, we do not need a special brand for Sullivan County. We need to take the brand that's known now and go with that one, 'cause
So I think we're talking about two different things. One, we're talking about opening up wholesale opportunities for farmers in Sullivan County, which could start happening now. But the other conversation that's been on the table very much is red meat processing facility, which isn't, you know, open yet. So I think we need to focus that conversation, like, do you just want to get some coordination about, you know, connecting farms to new markets and distribution channels? Or do you wanna focus on developing a Sullivan County brand for meat that comes out of that meat producing plant in whatever time that happens?
So that wouldn't really be necessary to do that, to focus on a brand for Sullivan County if we have pure
Yes,
Catskills, right?
I think
I don't
think-
as an, you know, I'm not in Sullivan County, I only come here once a month, so as an outside observer, I could say one of the things that I see as a problem regarding the conversation about the red meat facility is that there's a lot of conversation, but there's no, where's my little half sheet?
What?
These things aren't filled out.
Yeah.
There's no plan. The questions that you need to answer have not been fully articulated, organized, and tasks assigned to figure them out. There's a lot of talk and a lot of really good ideas, but I think if you wanna move on so that you make it so that the red meat facility, when it becomes operational, can be effective and effective for the area farmers, you need to identify these things. So my suggestion would be is whether it's a subcommittee or an individual, I think you need to write down all of these questions. What do you need to make that work? Who do you need to do it? How does it get done? So the things that you just mentioned in a few minutes, you know, we need to, how do we brand it? Well, we have a brand, how can we use the Catskill Pure Fresh, Pure Catskills? How do we reach the distributors? Who's gonna do it? Let's make a conversation with them and ask them, are they interested? Are they available? Do they have the capacity? Those are the questions that need to be answered and planned for so that when the red meat facility is done and ready to go, you're ready to go with those answers. And
So Beth, do you feel comfortable taking that on, or would you like a subcommittee to work with you to communicate with them and maybe the IDA, you know, as far as an operator for the meat plant?
I think I'd like clarification on what I'm taking on.
Yeah.
We've been
Just
working with the
informational to
convening.
bring it to the committee.
I just wanted to interject something
There's a lot.
because I came here to talk about what the Solution Project is doing and get everybody up to speed on our food hub modeling and our food systems modeling, and it's completely addressing everything that's being discussed at the table right now. So Jennifer Grossman and I have been working with Pure Catskills. We had a convening on
Okay, so let
March
me just introduce
7th.
Andrea. We'll jump down to number 6 and we'll move into a food hub discussion because it is 2:00 already.
Real quick too, because I know they do have to go to another meeting in Orange
That's
County.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So let's
Be
stick
there
with
by
it.
3.
Let's
Yeah,
stick
so
on
can
our
we?
meeting. Let's.
Okay, Andrea,
Stick
just a
with-
minute.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
okay.
yeah,
We'll
I would
just-
like to.
She has to leave, so.
Well, and it's not so much that I have to leave, but I really want you to focus on how to get from A to Z. And
Can I, so it's start looking for buyers. Once you find the buyers, what truck goes to that drop-off point? How do you focus on providing for that market? So narrow it down to a real pinpoint. That's what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying, is that there's, right, you need to identify what the questions, what you have to do to make the red meat facility, when it's operational, work. What are the questions you have to ask? Who do you have to talk to? What information do you need? So that when, and there is no operator for it yet, and that's, you know, whenever it's up and operational, then you need to have something in place so that the farmers aren't left with having to pick up the meat and drive it back to their farm and figure out what to do with it. That's what you, so you need the plan of how to go from there and use that to the best of all of the efforts you all have put into making that real. To me, as an outside observer, that's the piece that hasn't been articulated yet. And I think you have to have that ready to go, so when the red meat facility is operational, you'll have those connections, you'll have the farmers, you'll know who the distributors are, you're gonna know what the system is to use that facility effectively.
Well, the
Someone has to see that the facility gets built. Okay? We do have to do what you said, but nobody is hot on the tail of whoever has the strings and the money to see that this 10-year project happens.
But you know
What
in the
Ida,
meantime, we can use the other ones. I mean, people just need to sell products and put money in their pocket and
so just
get some momentum
bypass.
going.
Well, I think the committee should demand that Ida move this forward. This is ridiculous. You go to meetings and they tell you they've broken the ground. Well, that was how many months ago? I mean, when is it going to happen?
They got, they did an RFP to get the design of the building, they've awarded that, they're designing the building, now they're gonna go and do an RFP for the
operator.
For the operator and for the construction of the building, so, I mean, yeah, it's been slow, but if we can kinda come in, hopefully the two will meet when we come together.
Right.
I think though Ida should give us a month-by-month update on progress.
They have been at the Ag and Sustainability.
It should be
Committee
published. It
meetings.
should be, it should assure the farmers that this is actually happening, because many farmers think this is a
Okay,
joke.
we can get that piece, and I'll touch base with them. I think Mary made a good point. Until we get that information and know the time frame for the red meat plant, I think if Mary would maybe communicate with Beth for the next meeting and put that, just information only to the advisory board, so that we can kind of sort out what's actually possible for us to move forward. And because Mary's, a farmer, and with your knowledge, I think you two could,
So maybe you're looking for kind of an outline of wholesale opportunities?
what
In the
this
system.
board could assist in moving forward, the piece of the marketing.
This was my thought. I think there's an easy market down there in halal, which is not met yet, and it would be a focus. People could, anybody who's got stuff, well, there's only a couple plants that will do a halal processing. However, okay, so rather than take your meat to this guy, you take it to this guy. Now you have halal meat, there is a very limited market for that, so you know where you're going. Then you find the trucker who goes that, whichever distributor heads that way.
And make the link.
And you make the link. And then you get a little momentum going, some people have made some sales. You'd be surprised how the momentum picks up when you get some cash in your pocket.
Okay, so if Beth and Mary would be willing to communicate that and bring us, information for discussion at the next meeting, I think that would help.
Every different product has a different pathway, but are we keeping it focused on red meat?
I think Mary's point, if we have product to move now, we could address that.
Isn't that what's here in the county, would you say, beef?
I mean, is
For the most
Yeah.
part? Beef and pigs, I suppose.
Beef and
right?
pig.
So,
And we could tap into the Cornell woman who is in New York and has a real handle on all
And I
this.
can
She's
I
got-
can help work with you too also.
The woman that came to the thing not so long ago, she's got it all mapped out as to where the needs are in New York.
And I'll get everybody the mailing contact, or the email contact for everybody on the board, so if you wanna communicate, I know we sent it out last year, but I'll resend it to everybody.
And then we can look at, when we get together, these specifics.
Yeah, right, you would outline the things that you need to create the system and then to implement it. So I think if you can be organized about what's your plan, I mean, think about this as kind of a business plan. What are you hoping to accomplish? what kind of capital do you need, what kind of connections do you need, what kind of support do you need, and how you're gonna do it. That's what you need to outline, so that you can then make assignments to organizations or individuals to start taking those different tasks, so it's lined up. That's my advice on that one.
Okay, so we identified that priority. Were there any other ones to work on before the next meet? Nancy?
I just wanted to say, I think that, I see that as maybe more of a long-term goal. I think the committee, if they wanna have some action steps, needs to think about a short-term goal in terms of something that's really gonna truly benefit in the more immediate short term, both farmers and to improve local health. And I see that happening possibly with the year-round growing season with the hoop gardens and marketing, working with the schools, because they cannot implement a project if they don't have the local produce to buy. So
Now,
that's-
Nancy, I was in meetings when we met with the food producers from the schools, and there were a lot of questions about regulations and what actually can a farmer, if he can grow 25 acres of potatoes and bring them to the schools. There's that piece in between. Was that ever worked out, how that works?
It was discussed at length with a variety of partners, and I think we found that we had some meetings with Cooperative Extension, and some training in terms of safe practices. It really comes down to somebody to coordinate what the schools need, what they're willing to buy, in what quantity, from who, and connecting them
So I
with the
think,
local
like
farmers.
Nancy says, that's another really movable priority
We've got
that we
kids
could,
who are
that we
eating
could
180
achieve.
days a year at school for lunch.
Does it have to be inspected?
You know?
Who does it get inspected by?
Well, that's why a coordinator would have to work all those things out, because I remember there were some school districts that were willing to take the vegetables and wash them themselves and things, but we weren't sure about the regulation
Well,
part
has
of
there
it.
been an inventory yet of what schools need, how much they need, linked to farmers in the
Right.
county? Has that
That's
initial
what we've
step?
been trying to get off the ground for a number of years,
So
but
that
it
seems to
really
be a place to
Cooperative
start.
Extension
Right.
needs to take the lead on
You
that.
need to know what the schools need, what their regulations are, and then inventory what's grown or what could be grown, and make those links. And again, the same thing for the red meat. You have to design the system
Okay, I think
to
that's a really good
transport. So
priority.
from a short-term kind of thing, if you don't have that inventory yet, it seems that would be a first step to begin implementing and making that more successful.
We had a group that started to inventory that a couple of years ago, and what happened was, we inventoried it, and then it changed. So it's
It's a moving target.
Okay, so
changing
that's a
target.
priority maybe Nancy would work on with someone, maybe Melinda? Okay, so Nancy and Melinda for the next meeting. Sean, you had a question. Sean's a local farmer
It's
and,
not a question, it's more of a statement. This is my first time coming to an ag advisory committee meeting, so I'm very ignorant of what you guys are working on. I try to find stuff online, newspaper stories and those kinds of things, and even on the red meat plant. The only media story I found was from 7 months ago when they broke ground, so you're right. What is going on? As a
Increased
farmer in the
communication,
area,
right.
I have no idea, and anyone that I talk to, it's the same thing. I don't know, they broke ground. The real statement that I wanted to make as a farmer in the area who does produce year-round through the winter with hoop houses, we grow animals, we do lots of different things, is the market is there. The market is out there. It's not just in New York City, and it seems like what everybody is talking about here is a food hub that delivers to the city, a red meat plant that produces something, whether it's a raw cut or it's a smoked cut, and then it goes to New York City. Why are we not focusing on keeping our food here in the community? That is the goal, it is the mission statement of our farm, to educate consumers here and say farm-grown food is the absolute most nutritional thing that you can put on your plate for you and your children. And we are growing it already. We have farms here. You have to go to that farm, but you know, those farms are not far away from you. They're maybe 15 minutes or a half an hour, 45 minutes. And if you work with your neighbors and your friends in putting orders in for bulk stuff, you can go and you can get it and you can eat naturally and healthy and support local businesses here in the county. I love all the ideas that you guys are talking about, but you're putting the cart before the horse. We're already doing all of this. The farmers are already doing their marketing. They're already doing their sales. They have to in order to survive. And all I hear talking about is educating people on how to do the things that they're already doing, when in fact they may need just a little more help in tapping into other markets. But we have markets here. I go to ShopRite to buy staple items. That's it. I grow everything else that I eat. And when I'm in ShopRite and I see other people that are in there buying what they buy, it is garbage. We have food here. Why should we bring it to New York City? The only thing I can think of is it's a higher price. Everything associated with bringing your product to New York City is a pain in your butt. Bringing it to a USDA facility if you're processing meat, getting it cut up, getting it packaged, getting it labeled, bringing it to the city, trying to find a buyer. Through a food hub, it makes it a lot easier, but again, you're bringing the food out of your geographic area, and you're not supplying that food for people here. How do we do it here?
From your perspective, what's your idea to increase farmers that are producing like you and maybe marketing?
Well, the farm-to-table thing with local businesses and the schools, the farm to school, is the first thing. In my mind, if we're actually gonna provide food to people locally here, you start with kids. You provide solid quality food to kids. We have two younger folks here sitting across the room from me, and I'm interested to know why they're here. They're our target group.
Those are my sons.
They are.
And they're not as young
Now
as
they
you
look
think.
familiar. Now they look familiar.
And Rudy is right behind him, right?
So they're already on the path, but most of the schools around here, the kids are eating school food, which is garbage. I'm sorry, but it is crap. It has very little nutritional value, and it's adding on calories in the wrong direction.
Farm to school and farm to
Linda and Nancy,
business.
put some information together for us. How can we increase that? Are farm markets important to you too? Like a growth of farm markets?
I think they help, but it's that distributed thing again. So in terms of like a food hub where you consolidate the food, that's all great, but again, that food's gonna go somewhere
So
else.
how about visiting a farm that produces?
I think actually having a workable model where the food is consolidated within the region, it's bioregionally accessible. So in that biological region where you're growing those things, you pool it in that area, and that's where people buy. We all go to supermarkets. That's what they're doing. It's the same exact model.
So
They're
where can
taking
you
things from
market?
somewhere else and
You
putting them
market on farms, so
centrally.
people have to go to the farm to get your product, or they can get your product at farm markets or supermarkets? Where
Or
can they-
a farm market that is actually a store that some third-party entity manages, and they handle the influx of the goods. And then maybe there's a distribution system behind that that visits all of the farms seasonally to pick up whatever product they're producing seasonally, and they consolidate those
And from that farm
products.
market store, it would go to local schools.
No, from that farm market store, it would go to local consumers.
Do you know of any
From the
innovative?
school's perspective, the schools need the farms to bring them the food.
What about
They
a
need to
food
figure
hub
out the
with a retail?
regulations, they need to figure out all the legality of it and make that happen. But
Okay,
that is a
good,
way to get the
really good
food
point,
in
Sean.
front of consumers immediately.
Mary, you had
Here was an idea that it's probably written and filed in the planning department. Years ago, Rick Bishop came up with an idea called an ag village, and it was just that. It was sort of a consolidation, and there was kind of a mix of operator-owned stalls. It was, a physical place. It was almost a physical place with a farm market component. You could aggregate materials there, and the surplus that didn't get sold retail could then get clumped together and sold as wholesale. It was an outlet. Think of it as a little farm mini mall, an outlet where there was a fish stand and a dairy stand and a meat stand and a honey stand, and the operator could operate it for a little while, for some time. I don't know how that would work out, but it was all physically in one place. So then there was a warehouse attached. You could consolidate some of this product, and it could be sold elsewhere. It would just be a way, then all the product was at least in one place, and now maybe a truck could take it to
I think that
Similar-
sounds like
similar
the food
sales.
hub kind of concept.
Essentially.
I think that, I forget who it was that said that, the red meat planning is more longer term, cause we have to, there's other moving pieces with that. I think the idea that you should tackle a short-term goal that's more doable, I think that there seemed to be a lot of discussion about, the farm to school. It seems that is a model. There's plenty of other success places where that has been successful that we can learn from, hear what they've done, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and maybe that one, I mean, I think your Ag Village or whatever it turns out to be is a great idea, but I think that you need to focus on something that is doable. And maybe a shorter term goal is the farm to school program to get that up and underway. If it's been discussed for a number of years and it's not off the ground yet, it goes back to the same thing. What do you need to do? What are the barriers to make it happen? Who do you need to talk to? What are the tasks that you need to do in order to make it successful? Those are the questions you have to ask. And, to do an inventory of schools and look and then see what farming is taking place and how we could link them seems like a doable step to start. If you haven't done that yet, then that.
Okay, so I'm gonna task Melinda and Nancy to come up with some information for the next, and maybe follow this. To Jody and then Andrea.
Okay, my name is Jody Tadaldi. I'm located where the proposed food hub is going, and we're not thrilled about it in our neighborhood. There's several of us here, because I think, as you said, I don't know what farm or where you're from, but I'm sure you're not in Rock Hill or near Rock Hill. I think the food hub should have a retail outlet to it so that we can shop locally. And, everybody's just like, and as I was at the IDA meeting as one of the members that are here, and I vented in that I learned something, because I've never been to this meeting, had never been to an IDA meeting. And they came out with, the red meat has a facilitator already, but the food hub has somebody, an operator, but the red meat doesn't. So as good as all your intentions are, I'm sorry, did you want?
I'm sorry, I know what a food hub is, but I don't know what specific project you're talking
I'm
about.
talking about the food hub,
The
or the
IDA,
IDA has proposed to put.
In Glen
Okay, let
Rock.
me address that.
So there's a
Um,
meat processing
there-
part
No,
and the
there's
food hub
no,
part?
there's
Yes,
two
separate.
different. My question was, I live in Rock Hill. They proposed this food hub with.
Jody, could I just have, Melinda just fill in, just give a broad
Sorry,
background of the
Okay,
food hub in Glen
Wild.
Wild.
Background, because she knows more.
Brought for the Glen
The
Wild.
IDA, the Glen
IDA.
Wild Food Hub.
Just from what they said at the one meeting, that it's basically a distribution place only that they're looking at for working with Ginsberg
Mhm.
Foods to bring in local product and then use the existing Ginsberg Food Network to get it out to their network.
And also into the county, I mean, it's a less than trailer load,
No, but it's not into the
trucking.
county, it's.
Oh, wait, just let Jill finish, for a second.
No,
So-
it's a FedEx of, this is what someone described it as, a FedEx of food,
Yeah, I
right?
know
That,
as soon as
right.
I said Ginsberg, I knew what project you're talking
So
about.
it would be that if Ginsberg, say Mary couldn't get her dairy to Rock Hill, she would call up this food hub and say, can you please come pick up my dairy this week?
What's your dairy? It's produce.
No cheese.
No,
No,
she
I
does
had,
dairy.
she was just using me as an example.
Oh,
Just
okay,
an
okay, but it's
example.
not, but I don't want people to think it's dairy,
Yeah,
it's
it is.
only.
No,
about-
it's not, Jody, it's farm products, it's anything, it could be anything produced or made, it could be
So
meat, it
it's
could
an
be
aggregation
produce,
point.
Right.
anything
Right.
that is made
Got
by
it.
a farmer.
Aggregation and distribution, that's all it is.
I'm sorry to
Okay, and if you go
interrupt
online and you're familiar with the food hubs, they're less than tractor trailer loads.
Right.
That's what they're describing,
less-
they're not FedEx trucks, so
Right.
if you
Yeah,
go
well,
onto
there's-
food hubs in America, I mean, I went on to it, 99% of them are below Virginia, because that's the climate that, they operate year round, there's not a lot of hoop houses or anything in the northeast or the northwest. I mean, I went and I did my homework only because this is my neighborhood. We live in a residentially zoned
Right,
neighborhood.
I know where you live, I
that
have
they wanna-
friends that live on the road as
Okay,
well.
and Melinda
But-
lives right down on
Right,
our road.
yeah,
Okay, but
Supervisor
this-
Thomas Thompson lives on the road too.
Yes, he
But
does.
it's smaller trucks, it's not
The box
tractor
truck.
trailers, it's box trucks, it's smaller trucks.
And
that
what
would-
happens if it's bigger trucks? Then they're gonna say, oops, whatever, but I went on
They
and did
don't
our
have a
homework.
market, I mean, the building isn't gonna be large
Okay, wait,
enough to
let's
handle
just,
that.
I don't wanna get off this subject. but-
okay, Jody, just, make your.
I'm just gonna make my point. My
Right.
point is that the food hub originally, from what I understand, was supposed to be Carve and Harvest at the Apollo Plaza. It was a year-round 15, 20-acre farm heated by the gases from the dump and the solar panels and electric, which would have had a food hub attached to it. So whatever they didn't sell, they would then, you could bring your food product to them, they would also market it to the city. Again, I'm against the city because we have plenty of kids, adults, people up here to sell into the 3 or 4 counties around us. I don't know how much we produce, but there is a lot, but I think that it should be put somewhere where there's a retail aspect to it. I would love to see it after speaking to a few different people at the college, to have that educational attached to it. You could have it, the distribution center at the college, the kids could learn about business, about trucking, about growing, about distributing, about planting. And because Sullivan County, my son just graduated there, I have had all 3 of my kids go there. I think it's an excellent product that I think that we need to stay with because so many kids are being driven out of the area. It's our way of educating them to stay into the area and grow with it. So I really hope your agricultural board takes that into consideration to try to put it there, because I think the property is there, we own it, maybe we can lower our monies that we have to give to the college through booming of their, using some of that land. And I think it's much more properly located in access to the farms as opposed to in Rock Hill where there's nothing. But everybody has to pay attention just to one more thing. The food hub is a Warwick Sullivan grant, okay? Warwick, I've been in touch with several farms down there, have no idea what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is grant money that was given under the pretense that all these farmers know what's going on, and I hope as an agricultural community, you get together and find out exactly what the plan is. How are they gonna pick up, what's the cost gonna be to the farmers, can they afford it? Because your list of things you discussed today, none of them said they have a problem getting their product to market. That was not something on any of your sheets, any of your little check boxes, as which a few days ago there was an article in the Record for the Orange County industry. Not one of those said they had a problem getting it to market. Anybody that's in business, you're in business, you're already getting your product to market. Why?
I don't have to go anywhere, people come to me.
Okay,
It's
or-
just education.
Exactly, but if you
Teaching
didn't,
people where
you
the food
you
is.
wouldn't be in business if you had a problem getting it somewhere.
Okay, I would like to ask Andrea, I know you've had your hand up several times, so,
I gave up.
Let's hear about solutions.
Yeah, I actually, brought a map, and Cindy Geiger couldn't Jennifer Grossman couldn't make it, so I'm kind of filling in for her.
Jennifer Grossman, working with Andrea on solutions, which the presentation I heard was a reuse of the Narrowsburg School in kind of a food hub concept. Andrea's been here several times giving presentations. Jennifer wanted to be here, but she had a conflict.
So, we've been doing a lot of work. We've been using the Narrowsburg School as a point of departure for a lot of our modeling, and it's really food systems modeling that we've really sunken our teeth into. What we are currently involved in is asset mapping for agriculture. So you guys were talking about that, and I think we approached Glenn Pontier last week and applying for some funding to do with Pure Catskills. We have a meeting tomorrow with a GIS person, and we're going to actually start mapping our assets in the river corridor. So I think that's really exciting. It's NRDC and the Solution Project collaborating on this with a lot of other collaborators as well. On March.
Can I just make one comment before you go too far, just to be aware that the ag plan is also inventorying assets, so let's not reproduce.
Well, good, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, that's
our,
good.
That's what I was trying to say.
This is the
about-
GIS
Well,
person
we
that.
talked-
We talked to Jennifer about it.
So you guys know,
So
yeah,
just,
that's why.
Wouldn't that
yeah.
be better though if you had two sources that you could actually compare and contrast and find out if your information is
I
accurate?
don't know.
I
Because
think what
as
we're talking-
Nancy said, seasonally and yearly, things are changing all the time in the county. Some farms exist, K-Brand's gone. There goes half of the eggs in the county. That just happened.
The mapping that we're
So
working
it changes every year.
The mapping that we're working on is beyond Sullivan County.
Right, it's Delaware
So
County,
it's
it's a river
regional.
corridor, so we're looking at the watershed, I think that's what we're doing, right?
Right.
And we were working with Dana, he was at the first convening March 7th that we had. I can actually give you, do you want like a description to kind of get you up to speed?
Yeah, give us
For everything,
kinda-
okay.
yeah, as brief
Because
as
I
you
think,
can.
we've been doing all this work and I don't think anybody really knows about it, so, until, today. So, Sullivan County is at a tipping point. With the advent of local food demand growing around us and the capacity to produce and process local food within, the region is perfectly situated to expand its agricultural economy. To most effectively take advantage of the current unmet demand for local food, we must use a regional lens to strategically create an infrastructure that supports our local farmers. Our supply chain system starts from within, but relies upon and can be benefited from what is around us. And I think that kind of speaks to Ginsburg distribution and regional access here. The first step is communication among the players, and I think all of us are players here. We're all stakeholders. Our March 7th meeting, funded by the Wallace Center at Windrock, this was a convening of all of the players within this food hub kind of business. It's kind of popping up like mushrooms in upstate New York. And I think that we're perfectly situated to harness what's going on nationally. So I'm really excited about doing this work with Jennifer Grossman and our team. And led by Fair Food out of Philadelphia, brought together for the first time those entities and individuals involved in food hub, processing, and aggregation projects, and launched a Catskill Food Hub Network. So we're kind of developing a food hub network through our collaborations here. The list of attendees was Pure Catskills. We had Lucky Dog Local Food Hub, Growing Upstate Food Hub, Regional Access, the Ginsburg Project, the Narrowsburg Food Hub Project, which is the Solution Project, and now branching into more of this mapping stuff. Hudson Valley Harvest, the Mill Market in Hawley, which is the Silk Mill, if people are familiar with that, and Otsego, which is in development. So we're pretty busy on all this stuff. In order to move ahead and design a future direction, we must understand where our current assets are located. Facilities are involved in the storage, packing, processing, value-adding, and distribution of food must be clearly identified so that we can use them efficiently, avoid duplicity, and identify gaps. To develop new ag infrastructure to support our farms and ag business, we are now gathering data on the existing assets in the immediate surrounding areas. This is a critical second step. While we intend to connect our other regions, the Catskills has a unique role in the larger interregional food system, and our goal is primarily to increase the capacity of our farmers and food entrepreneurs to participate in providing local food to meet the unmet demand, $1 billion to $4 billion down in the larger urban market area only 2 hours away, as well as access institutional consumers already in progress, red meat processing facility, IDA Ginsburg, Lucky Dog Micro Hub. As a pilot and leader by example for the project, an initial region-specific asset mapping initiative will be conducted and led by Jennifer Grossman through NRDC and in collaboration with the Solution Project, CADE, and WAC organizations. And that's, I think WAC is you guys, right?
Yep.
Okay. The purpose of this pilot is to map the region's food systems assets and allow the data to buy its operators for effective food ag systems development in the region. Adaptive reuse of existing infrastructure, and this goes back to the Narrowsburg School modeling that we've been doing. There's also a site in Rock Hill that Jennifer knows of that can be for aggregation of cold storage that is a really good site, I think possibly for the Ginsburg project. Instead of having to do some kind of ground up development, you know, that would be actually fairly economical for the taxpayers and the grant money that's coming in. schools
And where
to
is
sh-
that piece? Where is that?
Jennifer
piece?
knows the specifics on
Okay.
that, so you need to talk to her about that. But that's actually a really exciting thing to add to the conversation.
What kind of square footage is that?
I don't know specifically, it's a lot. It's a lot, and we're still keeping the Narrowsburg School in play, but more as kind of like an artisanal craft food kind of hub model with a culinary kind of school, working with SUNY Sullivan, possibly doing some kind of food hub certification program. We're working with a lot of people in Vermont, kind of talking about like meat hubs, you know, and that was kind of what was part of our January discussion with the town of Tustin. That makes more sense in Rock Hill now after speaking with Glenn Pontier. So we're really just trying to get a lot of information, kind of vet it out and make sure that we're doing the best modeling that we possibly can. So to be able to share whatever resources and GIS information, that's great.
So as far as the Ag Advisory Board, how can we assist in, you know, what you're doing?
I think it would be, you know, collaborating with our kind of Catskill Food Network that's kind of coming into play now. There's the Fink Family Foundation. There's going to be supporting a Connecticut convening that will be like a really huge regional convening, including the Hudson Valley area. I think that's going to be in June or July. May 1st will be the next larger convening after we do the asset mapping tomorrow with our smaller group, and just kind of keeping everybody in the loop with the mapping, and then I think eventually working towards implementation of the actual hard bricks and mortar food hub distribution sites.
Okay, does anybody have any questions?
Will you work with the assets that you already mapped?
I didn't know that you guys were doing it, so.
Well, what we're mapping is really some basic things like identifying farms, farmland, prime soils,
Right.
and some tax parcel information, like who's getting agricultural assessments on their properties. If you could, you know, we're just gonna be limited to Sullivan County, of course, but, you know, if you're willing to share.
Absolutely.
So you'd welcome coordination, so.
I'll just get in touch with Jennifer.
Yes.
Jennifer, yeah, I put them in connection with Jennifer, and Jennifer is going to be at the next committee meeting, working group meeting.
Okay.
On the Glenwire proposal, were they proposing a size of a building for the food hub?
I have that information, not offhand though. Jill, do you have that?
I don't have it off the top of my head.
Here's just some additional kind of notes, so that, because it's a lot of stuff for me to say, and I think I'll just leave it at that. You guys can read that amongst yourselves. I did bring the notes from the first convening on March 7th, so that Cindy has this for her records.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Are there two hubs proposed, one in Rock Hill and one?
We're just, it's all conceptual at this stage.
No, but the Ida one, which is really.
That's the one that's separate.
That's a separate.
I think a really important role for this group to play, and I hate to come in and be the new person and, throw something on the table, but there are all these okay, first of all, the food hub as a term is very ambiguous. So we all need to be careful.
Enormously different.
It can mean everything from a farmer with a truck on his farm to, farm to table and, or to Cisco. I mean,
it's an aggregation site.
Exactly, or processing, or just, there's just virtual food hub. So I think if this group could really be a clearinghouse and a voice of reason around all this food hub development and kind of be a focal point for where citizens and consumers can come to get information about what is going on, would be interesting. I feel like there's a lot of moving parts right now, and there's a lot of different initiatives that are coming together. And if this group could be the focal point for Sullivan County, I think that would be really smart. And I obviously because of my job, I take a regional perspective, but I think really being clear about what the projects that are coming online, what the opportunities are, who is funding it, the direction that they're going. I just, just kind of providing some clarity for all these projects, I think would be a vital role.
And I appreciate Andrea coming. She has given presentations before. They've been at the town boards. They've really gotten a lot of information out. The IDA unfortunately could not be here today, but I think at the next meeting, I'm hoping that maybe they can do a presentation for this board so that we can kind of understand what's the difference between you know, the Solutions Food Hub and the Ginsburg Food Hub? Is that distribution? Are they gonna have refrigeration? Where's the, you know, the wrapping and the washing piece? You know, all these pieces are questions. Can we have more than one? Can we have 2 or 3? I'm not familiar with that,
Really
so.
making sure that they're talking to each other.
Yeah, and I think the press doesn't really understand what's going on at all. So a lot of the press pieces that came out last week, I think just confuses the local population more.
Absolutely,
because,
right.
you know, there really needs to be some clarity, and I think that's really the key word there is clarity, and we're educating people as we go through this process. We're educating ourselves, because, I mean, we're making a lot of this stuff up.
And I agree 100%, the focus should not be to get food to leave this area.
So I think
but
that's,
if we
I
have-
think it's a dual, personally, I think it's dual, but I think, that's a really important initiative. And in my mind, to connect local consumers and schools. So I think we're moving forward. So thank you, Andrea. Are there any other questions about the proposed food hubs from anybody? Bruce?
Not so much a question, but an observation. I'm pretty astonished by the lack of communication there is around all of these issues. We're here now with 2 sets of people doing inventory, which is duplicative. And a greater concern to me is the IDA Food Hub, and I'm really sorry they weren't here to present, because it's my understanding they haven't really presented to the agricultural community in this county. I know that there was a presentation board they were showing to legislators that named farms that had never even heard of the project, and it gave the impression to anyone who didn't ask questions that perhaps these farms were in support and endorsing this plan for a Glenwild Food Hub. That is not the case, because they weren't even aware of it. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars lined up by this county using taxpayer money to fund our planning department to put money in place for a food hub. Before that money is spent, we really have to see that it's a plan that's going to work for the farmers in this county. We don't need a big, expensive white elephant that sits over in an obscure corner of the county and may work for people outside of the county, but does nothing for our farmers. We're not going to get another shot at hundreds of thousands of dollars of USDA grants for a food hub. When we do it, let's slow the process down. Let's make sure everyone knows, including our farmers, what the plan is going to be, and let's make sure that it's all laid out before that money is spent. I'm worried that's going to go into a boondoggle, frankly.
Thank you. And I think Andrea made a really good point about the media. You know, we had several meetings, presentations, but, you know, information needs to be collaborated on. And I think that's why this reorganization of the Ag Advisory Board, I think, has been really positive, because I think we're going to get more collaboration. Next meeting, I will reach out to the IDA and have them, you know, present their plan as well, so that, you know, a lot of people in the public and the media can get the correct information. Sean?
I just have to agree with and tack on with what Bruce said. I moved back here in 2010 and started farming, so I'm a brand new farm. And I've never once been asked my opinion about anything going on agriculturally in the town. And I'm a young farmer. I'm a new young farmer in the area, stimulating other new young farmers, because we have internships and we have people who come and do work trade. I'm a member of the craft organization that's managed by the Watershed Ag Council, which is focused on providing other interns in the area with training on other farms in the area to get more educated. I'm more interested in educating the youth and the youthful consumers than I am about jumping into the big business stream and trying to make things like food hubs which take food out of communities. I'm more interested in focusing on the community and keeping the community active, and that seems to be the problem with Sullivan County.
So an in-county food hub, is that possible? Where you take it, you wash it, you prepare it, and get it out to local supermarkets?
Why are we not focusing on keeping the food in our community? Keeping our farmers connected to their community members, which they're doing themselves. But as a government body, which I think is what this organization spun out of, is the legislature, thank you. Why are we not focusing on our community? You know, casinos are the big thing now. I don't want a casino here. I would rather see 50 new farms crop up than see one casino, one new gambling table show up in the county. It's our community. Let's worry about our community. With the food hub, as you mentioned, that it's a Warwassing, Sullivan County kind of a thing.
That's the grant,
The
it's a
grant.
REAP zone.
Our food from our county may get aggregated at this hub, but then it's gonna get taken out of our territory.
And I just wanna say, Sean, we appreciate that you worked with the Sullivan County Farm Network. We appreciate that.
Is the
I-
reason
You
we
had,
are looking
you
to
had agritourism on your farm,
I think
right?
We have tours.
Right,
Yeah.
right, we appreciate that.
one supposition is if you go to New York, you make more money.
No, I
And,
think
and
that.
and the people here can't, I mean, that's, I think, a supposition, and because we don't have enough buyers here who will pay the price of some of the things, isn't that why we are, and New York wants food, but our
I think
people.
it's part of that. I think that, we can't ignore the fact that New York City is a huge opportunity from an economic point of view. It's just it's a market that's close by that can be taken advantage of. And I think there are a lot of obstacles to, one of the things that we did was interview the supermarkets. It's very difficult to get local food in supermarkets, and it's gonna be more difficult with the GAP certification coming along. We're gonna have to figure that out and how to help farmers be prepared for that and to work with the supermarket. So I think it's not just the price. I think it's more complex than you happen to be in a location that's accessible to New York, and that just makes an economic opportunity. I don't think anyone is ignoring food staying locally. I think that a lot of people, including farmers themselves, who see New York and the market there as just a big opportunity. So I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's both. I think that there are some farmers who will be interested in going to New York for a market, and there will be some farmers who won't. So I think it.
Especially with the red meat.
Yeah, I think
So I
it's.
would like to, start to wrap it down. So I just, one more comment, and then we're gonna hand it over to Nan. I know she has to leave, and we're gonna try to make a conclusion. Jody?
Okay, so, I'm part of the Master Gardeners up at Cornell, I'm part of the new group of us that are halfway through. And just last week, we had an organic gardener from Greenville, New York, come up and teach us about the high towers, which you were speaking about. And he goes down to the green market in the city. I asked him specific questions because of the food hub on, does he go down, why doesn't he sell locally, why does he go down? He said that he goes, first of all, there's no money that he can tack on to his product to afford somebody else to ship his product. He goes down to the city 2 or 3 times a week, all year right through to December. So this was his, him explaining it to us as a class, because we took it as a bit, he did his business model and explained how many, it takes to produce what and where and how. So that was the first thing. The second thing is, as far as, I know I have personally been trying to get the IDA to release specifics on this $870,000. So when you ask how big the food hub's supposed to be, it's a lot of grant money. So it should be broken down, we should know what it's for. Can we take that and make 3 food hubs with retail outlets and section them around Sullivan County? What would it take to sell Sullivan County a pound of tomatoes? If it's $10 a pound, yes, it is too much. Are you getting $10 a pound in the city once you put it in a truck, once you pay for gas and tolls and your time? No. So things are relative. But they're relative to where do we, this is your meeting, I've never been here, but where do you start? The cart is way beyond the horse. The horse can't even see the cart through the snow today, So it's really a difficult situation, and without the IDA coming up front and saying, this is what it is. I mean, I wish somebody here could foil it and present it at your meeting, because it's very important to know how you can separate it, what's best for the farming community.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Nan and Don if they, can give us some last recommendations.
I think that you got a lot of irons in the fire, and one of the things that the plan that we're trying to do with the update to the county plan is to articulate the direction. So the plan, as I see it, is the horse. And all of the things you've been talking about is the cart that comes after it. So I think a lot of the things, well, our hope is that the plan will outline a lot of that direction. And one of the things that is one of our team members that you wanted was a marketing component. And the marketing, it's not just a brand, but it's figuring out effective ways of reaching a variety of audiences that we need to reach. And that will be part of the plan. So I think that we need to, and that what Connie has worked with, that was what the one of the focus groups was on. I think we need to work on that. But my suggestion for you is, while we're getting the rest of this plan together, is to tackle, because you wanted to be an active group, so tackle something that's doable, that has, you know, maybe the long-term aspect that you can get in place, the short-term aspect, and focus on that. And then what we have to do is, when the plan is done, then you can we'll have all of these things outlined, and then we'll have to work to say, okay, in year one, X, Y, and Z are gonna be the projects you're gonna focus on. And then in the next 5 years, the next batch of projects will come online. I really think that you as a group need to focus on a couple things and follow them through from beginning to end. Otherwise, you're gonna find yourself all over the map with too many irons in the fire and not getting them going yet. So my advice is, I hope the plan will give you that direction, but in the meantime, prioritize, whether it's the planning for the red meat facility, whether it's the farm to school program, glomp onto one thing or two things and really use your interest and your expertise to get those done.
Thanks,
and map
Nan.
them out.
Yeah, I appreciate all the work that you've both done. They've been on the phone with us, and they've been at meetings, and I think a lot of information, and I think Nan is right. So what I got out of the meeting is that we're gonna have Mary and Beth work on that marketing piece and come with information to the next meeting. Nancy and Melinda will work on the farm to school, and maybe if you could, Nancy, I know you probably, and Melinda could do a little bit on, you know, the local marketing, like Sean was bringing in, as far as, you know, food hubs and like that. And I'll try to get a presentation at the next meeting for the food hub concepts to kind of collaborate together and see if there's some kind of middle ground. So the date that we're looking at, May 14th, is a month from now at 1 o'clock for the Ag Advisory, so I hope that works for everyone. Anne Marie, the clerk of the legislature, will send out the contact list for everybody, so feel free to communicate with each other. If you have any ideas or anything that, you know, lingering from this meeting, if you just email me, and I'll kind of disseminate that to who needs to get it. Okay, is there anything else? Yeah, Beth?
I just think that there's the simplest thing to start the ball rolling is take Nancy and Sonia, and if they could get 3 cow steer worth of hamburger and get it there and start it.
Right.
That is like such the smallest, tiniest,
Nancy, will that
get it
work?
there.
Well,
If
I
there's
think,
any way to
first of
do
all,
that.
Before we jump the gun, I think we really need an expert food service director from the schools to be represented if we wanna move forward on that as a
Absolutely.
short-term
Okay.
goal. And I know exactly who.
So Nancy, when you
Good choice.
communicate with Melinda, tell me what you need, and
Because
I'll
there are
bring in,
regulations in
right,
terms of fat
exactly.
content, salts, all that stuff.
We're very regulated, so,
There is an IDA meeting on the 13th, if you wanna know what IDA is doing, and would they be giving an update on
May
there?
13th?
Yeah, it's always the second
Second Tuesday
Tuesday,
at 10.
and it's
Right, okay.
10 o'clock, and maybe they could give an update and answer the question about the money, could it be in more than one place?
Okay. We're gonna reach out to the IDA as well. I think Jill is in communication, and Melinda as well, so we'll put that piece together. Okay, thank you all for coming.